Hello, everyone. I'm Denise Boggs, and I want to welcome you as we journey together through healing the heart. Welcome to this podcast, and we're talking about how father wounds can be unbelievably just shut you down because it breaks your spirit. I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread our last verse, and it was fathers. It's in Colossians 3:21. Fathers, do not, Paul says, do not provoke your children. Don't exasperate them to anger. In the King James, it says, don't exasperate them to wrath. And so you could be 35, 40 years old and not know where all this anger is coming from, okay? And it's coming from unresolved woundings during childhood, because anger, angry feelings that are buried alive don't die. Those feelings are still there. That anger's still there. And so that has to be identified. Those feelings have to come up and surface, to be grabbed hold of, recognized, to be able to bring those to death on the cross, because they're alive in you. They're alive in you. Feelings buried alive don't die, that feeling. So here, fathers, don't exasperate your children, but bring them up in the nurture. Paul says, nurture and admonition of the Lord. In Ephesians, he says, bring them up in the nurture of the Lord, the love of the Lord. In that nurturing. Well, but for myself, I wasn't brought up in the nurture of the Lord from my dad. And I said last time on our podcast that we can't put our healings in the hands of the one that hurt us. I received my healing not through my dad apologizing. He never did. Okay? He didn't. But I want to say this. My relationship with him was reestablished because I received healing. And then I could approach him with a healed heart. Not out of anger, not out of requiring him to apologize. And so our relationship was healed and restored before he died. But God taught me through that. He said, you cannot put your healing in the hands of the one that hurt you, because my dad did not change. He did not heal until the final year of his life. So he would not have known even how to hear me or respond to me if I told him how I was so wounded and rejected and abandoned by him, and how it affected me. If I'd have told him all of that in my 30s, oh my goodness, he would not have had a clue what to do with it. He'd have just gotten angry, and he would have rewounded me and cut me off. So I want to say this to you. I'm saying all that to say, healing, you go to Jesus. Jesus is your healer. It's God's love. Do you know that when God sent Jesus to the earth, he sent Jesus to the earth in his love. Jesus was and is the love of God. The love of God. Because when we receive Jesus, we're receiving God's love. We're receiving him. And he heals us as we forgive and release the pain and replace it with the love of God. See, you don't know who you are until you know who you are according to God's love. Not your daddy's, not your mama's. I didn't know who I was. You don't know who you are as long as you're defined by the small measure of love of a mother or father that doesn't even know God. My daddy didn't know God in those days. He didn't know him. God is love. He that dwelleth in love dwells in God, and God in him. My daddy didn't know love, didn't know God. Now, let me say this. As a child, there's two people two people that God has assigned to love you and nurture you and pour love into you, and that's your mother and father. Okay, two people that are assigned to it. He doesn't say, Grandpa, love your children as Christ loved. He doesn't say that. Or aunts or uncles, even though they show love, but your mother and father. So that's where you start in your healing journey. You start with your relationship with your father first and your mother second. Okay? And then you have to recognize, the symptoms, even from Scripture, to let you know if you did not receive that nurture and that love. By the symptoms, according to even to Colossians 3 here, the symptoms that let you know I really did not receive enough of my Father's love, my earthly Father. And do you know what? It's His voice tone that you long to hear love through. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so what's in the heart is what the heart, it's spoken. So my daddy's voice would be harsh. It would be harsh before he left. Okay? And so as an adult, if my husband raised his voice and got a harsh tone, I just shut down. And it was because my husband was triggering pain in me from my father's voice. I had to heal from that. But I had to recognize that what was triggering me with my with my husband was really my father issue. And it shut me down, almost like a little girl. I just shut down and go to the other room. I couldn't take it. Okay? But that was my pain that my husband's triggering. Okay? What if you never heard your father's voice? Okay? That's a whole other level of pain. That if you never heard his voice, you've been searching, longing to hear a voice to bring love to you, to let you know you're loved, you're precious, you have worth and value, all of that. But if you never heard it from your earthly biological father, okay, you may have been searching to hear that voice. And so it's even hard for you to hear from earthly voices that are trying to tell you they love you. Okay? Your husband, your wife, if they're saying I love you, but if you never heard your father say I love you, your earthly father, then you may not be able to open your heart completely to the earthly vessels that God has chosen to pour His love through. So you have to be aware of that. So I want you to look at your present situation. I had to look at my marriage. Listen, my healing journey started when my husband and I are pastoring a church, and everything's triggering me. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea that was unhealed areas in my heart. And so my healing journey took 2 years to work through the pain, but I was able to identify the pain that needed to be released out of my heart through what was triggering me in my present. What was triggering me? What was upsetting me? Let me know where my pain was. And so when something would trigger me, so what I want you to do until the next podcast, I want you to get some type of a journal, just a notebook, and at the top of the page, triggers. I want you to trace the triggers. We're going to track from fruit today back to the root. The fruit means triggers. What's coming forth? What's coming forth? What is produced a trigger? Like, do you get angry? Do you shut down? Do you cut people off? What triggers you, and how do you respond when you get triggered? When my husband would trigger me with a harsh tone, I just shut down. Okay, so the trigger was what he did. It triggered me, but it told me there's something that's affecting me because I'm overreacting. He could just say, "Where's the peanut butter?" Oh my goodness, I would shut down. Because his identification of love growing up was peanut butter. He would come home from school, get off the bus. Grandma would have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and sit down and talk to him. So that was his identification. That's how he defined love. So we get married, and if I don't have peanut butter, he doesn't feel loved, okay? And this was our beginning process of healing, is that he doesn't feel loved, and so he might say, "Where's the peanut butter?" But then I shut down. And so I'm saying all this to say to you, I want to help you to be able to recognize what triggers you and how you respond. Those two things. Keep a journal. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Keep a journal, because this is going to help you to understand where these pockets of pain are. And they're usually with mom or with dad. Pockets of pain must be opened up, recognized, and worked through so that you will not react when someone says a certain thing. My husband can say today, "Do we have any peanut butter? Where's the peanut butter?" And it doesn't trigger me at all. And so that's our goal, is that we can overcome the pain of our past. So instead of living in pain, we're living in purpose. That's our goal. Whereas before, Lee and I, my husband, we could get so sideways over peanut butter. And he could say, "Well, that when I don't have peanut butter, I just don't even feel like you care." And of course, that was his unhealed pain. And then I'm saying, "You mean after all I do for you, I cooked you a good dinner, and now you're just worried about me?" Then that's my response. So we would get into it. And so instead of living in purpose, we're upset for 2 days over peanut butter. And I know I'm kind of dwelling on that, but somebody listening to this podcast knows what I'm talking about. It's those tiny little things that trigger buried pain, and then you're hung up, shut down for 2 or 3 days. Can't move out in your purpose. Look here. That's another symptom here. Colossians 3, verse 21, unmotivated. When Lee would have a harsh tone and I'd shut down, I was so unmotivated. Oh my goodness. I couldn't do a thing for several days because the pain that I was still carrying, unhealed wounding from my dad, my earthly father. But once I got healed, peanut butter wasn't an issue at all. So, let's track from the fruit today, the triggers and the responses, back to the root, see where it comes from. All right, I want you to listen now. This is a journey. I want you to work on it, walk through it. God bless you.